This video is going to demonstrate how we use the ProSuite supplementary details for population into a JBCC agreement or contract data. This assumes you have watched the video on how to create a document and a project in the previous video, and we're just going to focus on the supplementary details. We assume you will have logged in, previously registered, so we're going to log in on that assumption that you have previously created an account. I'm going to just log in as a test account, log in, enter ProSuite. I've got multiple companies, so that may not apply to you. Continue. And we're at the page where we have our projects and the documents associated to each project. Let's assume we want to create a new project, so we say add new project. It will want the name of this new project, so let's call it test video Supp details, and let's just say that is the name of our project. We'll give it a file code or a reference. Let's just say 0010, and we will say, now this is, we want to use the supplementary details, so we say save and add project supplementary details. And effectively, as we've created a project now, there it is, test video Supp details, that is the name of the project, and there are the supplementary details that we are referring to. Now, if this was an existing project, in other words, it's not newly created, I'm just going to show you how you would access this page, assuming you were a returning user. So if you are logging in, you would access your project. So it happens to put the latest projects at the top, but if it wasn't listed, we could search for it, type in their test video or test whatever the name of the project is, and it will search. We can set how many projects we want to view. So if I only want to see 3 in a list, there are 3. There is my particular project. If I click on that project, you will notice there are no documents that have been created. So if we want to access the supplementary details or the project details, we will click on Update Project Details for this project, which is Test Video. That's the name of the project. We'll click on that button and it takes us back to the same screen that we were previously in. So what we're going to do is work from left to right. These are the details that we're referring to, and we start off with project details. What is important is we'll follow the legend, and the legend is sitting over here. We're talking about JBCC, everything in yellow. So we're interested in the fields that have a yellow J. For example, estimated duration is not required in terms of a JBCC document, so we don't need to populate that field. We need to populate description, we need to put in a street address, we need the law, applicable law, we want an earth, and we want a township. And then we're going to say save. So we're just going to say populate. We're just going to say test project. Now, if you're not sure of this at this point, it's not the end of the world. We will have another opportunity to change the name of the project at the time of creation. So we're going to feed in street address. We're going to feed in South Africa. We're going to feed in an earth. Doesn't matter really what it is. And we're going to just say township. And we're going to say save. Success. And we move on to the next tab, which is then client. If we don't have the client in the system, or we haven't used the client previously, we need to physically populate. If we have used the client previously on a previous project, we use the plus button and we have the benefit of selecting that client from the data saved in the system. Successful, and it will populate all of those details through for you. J, so it means we do need a client or an employer. Employer in the case of JBCC, and client in the case of Proxa. Bearing in mind that we are sharing details across document suites. So we are setting up a project once. The same information is going to be used into our documents, irrespective of whether it's a JBCC or Proxa or any other document for that matter. We now move on to the project consultants, and we look at the yellow J's. So mandatory, we do need to have a principal agent. So we click on the plus button, assuming we have used this principal agent somewhere previously. We can share across other disciplines. So for example, I may have a project manager on a previous job. I can use that project manager as the principal agent. So there is our principal agent. Let's assume that's our principal agent. Save. We can obviously, if we wish to edit those details, we can just say add. Those are the details associated to that principal agent. We now need to populate. Let's assume we're going to be creating a contract data document. I think in the latest edition we have facility for entering 8 different consultants or agents, and we're going to have to populate those details into these fields so that they, at the time of creation of that document, these details are going to populate through for us. So let's assume our first agent that we would like to show is our architect. So we'll click on plus, we select the architect, and we say save. Now what we need to do is we need to click on add consultant details, and there is a position over here of where that architect we want him listed. There are 8 places inside the contract data. We may only want to list him, let's just say 3rd, in which case I must select 3. Let's assume I do want him listed as the first agent. I must say so then, and we're going to say save. Now this is important, and you will notice then now that is telling us that that architect is being listed now as the first agent. We would then, let's just say, want a project manager. Let's say I don't have a project manager that I have previously used on this project, so then I'm forced to say add consultant details, and I'm going to say test project manager, PTY, let's just say PTY Ltd, and what we have is an option. We can feed in the email address of this project manager and use the system to request that this project manager populates the balance of the details online. So I can manually feed in. If I don't, let's assume I don't have this information, I'm just going to feed in the name of or the email address of this particular project manager, and I'm going to then click save. Click OK. We're then going to find that this button alongside project manager becomes available. Send update details invitation. In other words, an invitation to that project manager by email for him or her to populate those outstanding details. So I'm going to use that in this case just to show you how that works. You're about to send an invitation to have a consultant update their details. This is it's like a simple little letter that's going to go by in the form of an email. We can say, please can you update your details as a matter of urgency on the whatever project as discussed, whatever you want to say, and we say done editing, and it's going to send. Once I say send email, it's going to send it from myself to that particular person, and they can then populate their details real time, and they will then be listed in our database for future use. So we're going to say send email, and that is now being sent out to that consultant. If we want to come back at any later point, we can always say add consultant details and populate or change or edit. What we do need to do is obviously say that the project manager, I didn't do that, is we need to say they are listed as number 2. I'm now going to go and say save, and I'm going to now add in a quantity surveyor. We go down to quantity surveyor, and we go QS consultant, save, and we must go back and tell the system that we want them listed as 3rd. If we don't list, you probably find it's not going to put it into the document, because the system doesn't know where you want it to go. So you must remember to allocate it into a position. We're going to say save. So we've got 3 positions saved. Let's just say we want to get a civil and a structural engineer. So we'll go and say add civil. We go down to civil. There's a civil engineer. Save. And we need to tell the system that this is now going to be number 4. And save. There are all the details. It saved us having to populate. And let's go to a structural engineer. Let's just say, and we're going to click on the plus. Scroll down to structural. Structural. Here we go, structural engineer. Save, and he will now become number 5. So we will say structural engineer, add number 5, save, done. So that's the principle and process of how we allocate all the different agents. We then move through to the principal contractor. Let's assume we are using either a principal building agreement and its associated contract datas, and we're not doing a subcontract in this particular instance. I'm going to show you, let's assume now at this point that we know who the contractor is going to be. In a separate video, I'm going to spend time and show you how the tendering system works, because there what we will do is focus on how we set up the documents at tender stage, which is quite different to what we're doing here. We at this point are saying this is the contractor. So we are beyond the tendering stage, and that will be treated as a separate video, which you can view at any point in time. So let's assume it's a contractor that we have dealt with previously, and we just select principal contractor, whoever that's going to be, save, and it will populate all the details in for us. J, it's telling us we need to populate. Now this could be a tenderer, doesn't have to be, it may be. There are better ways of dealing with tenderers, but it could be, if you choose to go this route and do this as a contract data document as a tenderer, in other words, he hasn't been appointed yet, you can do so. We're not going to populate subcontractors at this point in time. We'll deal with that as a separate issue and as a separate video within tendering. Arbitrator tells us we want to know who it's nominated by. That's all it wants to know. We don't need to feed in all of these fields. Proxer would want all of the fields. JBCC only wants nominated by. And from a mediator point of view, let's just save that. Success. Mediator, no mediator details required. So we're ready now at this point in time to move forward into the actual creation of the document. So how do we do that? We now click this button, create document for this project. We click on that button, and JBCC, much more complicated in terms of all the additions and options we have. Let's assume we're dealing with the latest, which is a late edition 6.2, and the equivalent minor works, which is 5.2, but they're all released in May of 2018. We have the option of contract data, we have agreements, we have the forms, we have certificates, and a whole range of standard letters that are available. A whole range, I think there's 60 or 70 different letters suitable for different things related to this contract. So let's say we want to create an agreement, or let's use the actual contract data where we can see that those agents are being populated. So we say it's a contract data document for a principal. It's a principal building contract data, and we say create new document. We now have the opportunity to correct the project name if it's not entirely correct. So let's just say it's project details, whatever we wanted to say. Maybe we're correcting it. Project reference, the employer, it brings that in. Who the contractor is, brings it in. We give it a file code. So the file code is, we have the opportunity just to say that, and we want to say let's just say principal contractor, and the date, contract date. And we're then ready to say purchase document. So we click on purchase document. And then we can either view and edit this document online, or if I click email to me for completion by hand, it will email the document as a PDF attachment to us, to myself as the user. Now, if you are a first-time user, you're going to have to go through one more step before you can actually transact and download and access the document, and that is purchasing credits. So either you're going to have a zero balance. Certainly if you're a first-time user, your balance will be zero. In my case, I've got 104 Rand, which equals 104 credits, which is going to be insufficient to purchase this document. So I'm going to now, it warns us and says insufficient Rand balance, and it says input. It wants me to top up by 104 Rand. In other words, it's calculating, my shortfall, let me repeat that. I have got, those are my credits sitting up at the top here, 91. I need 195, so I'm 104 short, and that's why it's telling me I need to top up with 104 Rand to purchase 104 credits. If you had zero, it would say to you, you need to top up with 195 Rands worth of credits, and that's going to have to happen before we need to get the credits updated here before this purchase can continue. So we're going to feed in here 104. It's done it automatically for us, and we're going to say click here to purchase, and it will then take us through into the credit card transaction. Either credit card or EFT we'd need to select. I'm going to go the credit card option. You would populate your credit card details, the name. I'm not going to populate all your expiry dates and details, and you would say pay 104 Rand, and it will probably then request a PIN sent to your cell phone, and immediately you will find that your credits have then been topped up by the 104 to give you sufficient to continue with this process. I'm not going to go through that process. I'm going to say cancel, and it's going to decline my purchase, and I'm just going to go back back to ProSuite and continue the process. Through the back end will just top up and make sure that I do have the sufficient credits to continue with the process. So I'm going to continue with the purchasing process. I can go through just so we're familiar with what we've done. Update details. The details are all here. We've done this exercise. They're all sitting and being inserted. We say create document for this project. We select the document. So we're just repeating what we've just done. Principal building 195. Create new document. I have updated my credits. So I do have sufficient credits. I wanted to update my code. We said there /PC. It brings in the correct details. If not, you amend it, and we then say purchase document. We either view and edit online, which is what I'm going to do, or we then get it emailed to ourselves. If we get it emailed, we can still populate offline and save and send those details back into the cloud. That is an option. I'm going to go this option, view and edit, and we should then see the document being loaded. Success, click OK, and we will now see here is the document that we have just created. So I'm going to summarize what we have discussed in the ProSuite video. Really, what this is telling us, that is the document, it's the contract data, it's the file code, the contractor. It's not a certificate, it's not a tender document, so it tells us it's not who created it, which edition, when it was updated. It's an open document, we can close it at a point in time, it's visible, and we can select the different actions. The actions are we can view and edit, we can receive it by email, we can download it, we can view the revisions of this particular contract data. Each time there's a save, that is a revision. So if we've got 6 different saves, there'll be 6 revisions. We can compare what has changed from one revision to the next. We can collaborate, we can set up who we want to collaborate with. In other words, we send this document to other people, other parties, that they can view it. Maybe we're sending it to the client, maybe we're sending it to another team member, for example, the principal agent, and to view and comment. We send it to collaborators, we set them up, then we send it. We can use the system to go through electronic signatures, where sign on demand deals with the process flow of electronic signature. So it automates that flow. It will send the document from signatory to signatory, generally two signing parties and 2 witnesses for each, and it automates that process from one to the next, letting them each initial and sign each page, and then ultimately comes back to the final party. They initial sign, and everybody receives a copy, electronically signed PDF of that document. So that's a service that is one of the features of the doc system, and that is signed on demand. You can close it at a point in time once we don't want any further editing, or reopen it and then hide or show. So those are determined by these settings here, and we can then obviously, when there are many documents, only look for the contract datas, or only look for tender documents, or all documents, or particular editions, or closed or open documents, or hide a document. So once we hide it, it basically removes it from the list. So those are your options in terms of the table, the documents. If we want to only see 3 documents, or we want to see 75 documents, or all of them, you can obviously do that. And if we want to search for a document, so also very useful, just type in the first few letters of whatever you're searching, and it will find that document for you. So either we can now say view and edit, I can go that option, or I can just select on the document over here. View and edit is one option, or view only. Now the differences here is that view and edit allows me to edit. View only is locked. It cannot edit fields at all. And secondly, all the notes fields that are visible in the editing document, red blocks and notes, user notes, are not visible in the view only. So sometimes you want to send a document without all of those notes, and you don't want to have access for editing for whatever reason, then that would be the view only. I'm going to go view and edit, and it will then open up this document, or give us the option. We're going to say open, and it's usually between 1 and 2 or 3 megs in size, and here is the document that it has opened for us. So the fields are locked. That are locked is the project, the employer, and the contractor. We need to make sure that those fields are correct, because we don't have another opportunity to adjust. All of the other blue fields are editable for us to amend. So we can just scroll through, and you'll notice that the site, all of this information has been populated into the document. So if we just go, there is our employer, it's brought in all our employer information, it's brought in the principal agent, it's brought in agent 1, there's the architect, the agent, the second agent is our project manager, our quantity surveyor, and our civil and our structural. those details, the others were left empty. And then you would need to, as a user, populate all the remaining details. And once you have done so, you would then say save. You'll notice that it does watermark on each page. We're going to now say save this document, and it will save this document online. Document is saved online. Click on close this window. And if it's not closing and it doesn't want to, you can just minimize and it will take you back. So you will notice here, this document now is revision 1. As we save it again, it will become revision 2, and each time we save, that revision will change. And that's basically using the supplementary details. The next video will deal with the tendering system and how do we use the system to deal with tender documents. Before we just conclude, I'll just summarize some of the main heading items. We've got at the top who the user is, what our balance is, what are we? We are an administrator. You could be a project administrator or an office administrator or an office user. Are you a subscriber or not? Switching between different suites of documents, accessing the document prices for all the various different JBCC documents. If you want to purchase credits, you can do so from that menu item. A range of different reports that you can access, purchases by office, by project. You can view documents, you can get transaction history, summary of all your invoices, who are your active collaborators. This is where these videos are active. So what is a project document? What is a reference document? More about ProSuite, understanding or watching videos around JBCC ProSuite, setting up office users, project administrators, who are the different roles allocated, and view and set up document collaborators. So that's all user setup. Tendering is really what we're going to deal with as a separate video. That's my tenderers, tendering setup, create tender documents, subcontractor and supplier listing. We're going to deal with this as a separate video. And fairly useful at the stage prior to actually appointing a contractor or subcontractor. Support, if you're stuck, you need some help, click on support and it will give you an option just to phone, let's chat. You can click on that and get some online assistance, or you can feed in support documents for changing of details. If we just go back and then log out should you wish to exit and quit out of the system. So that concludes